Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into 1,000 Secrets of Wise and Rich Men Revealed. This book, it's like a hodgepodge of advice, kind of like peeking into a late 1800s time capsule, You
Yeah,
got everything from like horse care and weird remedies to, get this, instructions on building a candy house.
it's true. This book is a product of its time, published in 1888. Think about it. Rapid industrialization, cities booming, tech advancing like crazy. This book, it captures that sense of change, the possibility and uncertainty of it all.
Right, it's like a snapshot of the era's mindset. Take, for instance, Bogardus's liniment.
Yeah.
It's a cure-all for everything, even croup. Can you believe that?
It's a good reminder that this was before modern medicine. People relied on these home remedies passed down through
I
generations.
mean, I've Googled some questionable remedies in my day, but still. And speaking of things I wouldn't try, there's a section on taming horses. This Arabian horse tamer's secret, he uses oils of cumin and rhodium. Just a few drops on the horse's tongue and bam, he's your servant, it claims.
I'm sure it wasn't that easy, but you can understand why they'd look for these shortcuts. Horses back then, they were essential. Transportation, work, everything. Imagine needing to control such a powerful animal.
Yeah, your livelihood depended on a reliable horse. But it's not all horse taming. This book, it's got whimsy too. There's a whole guide on building a candy house, like detailed instructions using lemon sticks for support, the whole shebang.
Makes you wonder if people actually built them, right? It speaks to a certain, desire for beauty amidst the chaos of the times. And it wasn't just candy. Bogardus was into photography, too. He has a whole thing on taking leaf photographs using, get this, bichromate of potassium.
Every page is a surprise. And just when you think you've seen it all, you stumble upon his quick shooting records. Like meticulously detailed from 1879 to 1895. He even timed himself.
The man had many talents, clearly. It was different time. Marksmanship, it was valued. It also speaks to that culture of self-improvement, pushing for excellence, even in leisure.
It really makes you think about how skills were perceived back then. But it's not all quirky anecdotes. He dives into memory techniques too, advocating for a system of mnemonics.
This is where it gets really interesting. He creates these, well, they're bizarre nonsense lines with their numerical equivalents. Like, he uses do, early witness, and do for the year 1707. Strange, right? But that's the point. These phrases, they stick in your mind, making it easier to remember dates, facts, you name it.
It's wild. He's got a whole chart of these mnemonic phrases, and it really makes you think about learning before smartphones.
Yeah.
Imagine having to memorize everything.
Oh, it was essential. And while his techniques might seem, well, outdated now, they highlight something important about memory: association. We remember things better when we can connect them to something else, even if it's a weird phrase about do.
It makes you wonder, though, did they really understand the information, or were they just good at remembering a phrase? Like, did they get this significance of 1707?
That's a good point. It speaks to how education has evolved. Today, it's less about rote memorization and more about, critical thinking, figuring things out, knowing where to find information.
Right, it's a different world now. Though, remembering things is still important. Speaking of important, Bogardus had some thoughts on finances, frugality, hard work, the dangers of debt. He even quotes Poor Richard saying, "The borrower is a slave to the lender." Strong words.
Very much the sentiment back then. Debt was like a moral failing, a sign of weakness. It wasn't just money. It was about independence, freedom in a changing world.
He really hammers home living within your means, avoiding unnecessary expenses. And, considering the economic ups and downs of the late 1800s, that pragmatism makes sense.
Absolutely. Those times were volatile. Booms, busts, poverty. Frugality wasn't just moralizing, it was survival advice.
And that ties into his emphasis on hard work, right? Like he quotes Poor Richard again, "Industry need not wish. It's about taking control, not relying on luck."
Exactly. Self-reliance, individualism, the idea that anyone, regardless of background, could succeed through sheer grit. The American dream, right? Deeply rooted in that era of westward expansion.
It's interesting, though, how some of those values, we see them differently now. Like the idea of a level playing field, it's more complex than that.
For sure. It reminds us that even deeply held values are shaped by their context, and we have to examine those values, understand their origins, and see how they might need to adapt to our own time.
Right, context is key. Okay, ready for another twist. Bogardus doesn't just give advice. He brings in historical figures and events, too. Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson, the American Revolution. It's like, whoa, where'd that come from?
He's using those big names, those events, to back up his own views, you see. Whether it's about responsibility or national unity, it shows how history is always being, well, reinterpreted, sometimes to fit an agenda.
And just when you think you've got Bogardus figured out, he throws in some poetry. There's a piece, Our Mission. It's about like perseverance, growing from losses, that sort of thing.
And that's something we can relate to even now, right? The power of resilience, learning from mistakes, seeing challenges as like opportunities. It's a timeless human theme, finding meaning in our experiences.
Totally. And then, as if we haven't seen enough, he has a whole section titled What to Invent and How to Protect Your Invention.
It fits perfectly, though. Think about it. The telephone, the light bulb, the car, this was a time bursting with invention. Bogardus, he was caught up in that excitement, encouraging people to be creative, to innovate.
It's true. And he even gives advice on patents, like how to navigate that whole system. It speaks to that entrepreneurial spirit. Anyone with a good idea could make it big.
Exactly. It's that push and pull between tradition and progress that defines the era. You've got this reverence for hard work, for like timeless values, but also this excitement for innovation, for change.
It's like they were on the edge of something brand new, excited, and maybe a bit unsure of what it all meant. So after going through this wild ride of advice and stories, what stands out to you the most from 1,000 Secrets? What's your big takeaway?
It's not just one secret or one piece of advice. It's more like it's like a portrait of a time. It's both relatable and totally different from our lives,
Yeah.
Reading this book, it's like stepping back in time, seeing how people dealt with change and opportunity.
Totally. It reminds you that even though times change, some things stay the same. Wanting knowledge, worrying about money, looking for those easy answers, it's all still relevant today.
Exactly. And looking at these old texts, even the ones with outdated advice, it helps us understand ourselves better. We see our own values differently. We see how the past shaped us.
It's like a conversation with the past,
Hmm.
right? Learning from those who came before, even if we don't always agree.
Absolutely. And with so much information out there today, it's even more important to be, to be critical, question things, see different sides, and form your own opinions.
Well said. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into 1,000 Secrets of Wise and Rich Men Revealed, I'll leave you with something to think about. What advice, what trends that we have today will seem strange to people 100 years from now? It's something to ponder, isn't it? Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.